Good to see everybody again. Another Cute for Teams session. Ricardo Wilkins here. Stacy's out today. And we are all here to talk about teams. So this is champions using teams. And even though it's wintry and cold outside here in Ohio, I'll make the best of it. I would much prefer to be in a more warmer climate, but I'll take what I can get. So let me, let's see here. Let me share the screen here. And I think I saw, so you should see my screen there. And got a couple things in the chat. Let me do one thing here. All right. We'll address the things in the chat. I did have planned. Oops, that's not what I wanted. This guy here. Wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of accessibility pieces in Teams. Share a couple thoughts, but also curious about your thoughts and usage of things. And this is kind of sparked by, I know the sign language interpreter features, are rolling out. And but again, this article, which I think is relatively recent, is just speaking in general about some of the tips and best practices for considering accessibility in your meetings and use of, well, specifically your meetings, but in general your use of Teams. Let me take a look at the chat here real quick. So I do see, and Glenn, maybe you can summarize here, but let's see. So I'm using PowerPoint Live. The attendees camera appears to disable. Testing this, a few people, after they started live, the camera turned off. Manually, let's see, I'm not set. Okay, so basically some camera issues specific to PowerPoint Live. I don't know that I've ever had that problem. I don't know if anybody on the line has had a camera issue specific to PowerPoint Live. I mean, certainly we can have camera issues at any time. And then the take control feature. Is there a way to disable that for the attendees? I did see the private button. So I know take control is certainly able to be disabled at a policy level. And I have customers for whom they're, they turn that off. Let's say, for instance, for an external users, not allowing them to take control of the screen. That makes sense. If you're asking about a end user, right in the client, I don't know if there's a disable simply from the fact that if someone asks for control, you don't have to give it to them. I don't think anybody can take control without you allowing it. But again, a policy could keep them from being able to ask at all. I also see in the chat, and I did mean to do that. I'm gonna pop this URL into the chat for everyone. A lot of moving parts here on my end. All right, there you go with that. So Glenn, I'm hoping I know I didn't answer the camera question. Hopefully the take control question or answer made sense. If there's an ongoing issue with your cameras in PowerPoint Live, that might be worthy of a ticket, because I'm not aware of any issue with that, so, to date.
Well, when I received this from one of my users, I tested it with some other people, and we were not able to duplicate the problem. Yeah. So I'm thinking that maybe there was some problem with her individual computer. I don't know. But on the second issue, we were in a meeting and somebody was presenting a PowerPoint, and somebody had an urgent question or issue, and he just stepped on her. He click take control, and then his screen was sharing instead of her screen.
Okay.
And so we found in the Teams calendar setup that when the organizer is setting up the meeting, there is, who can take control, everyone in your organization, only the
Yeah.
organizer, and you can restrict it that way. But we
Okay.
were trying to see if there were any other ways to restrict it, and you were saying the system administrator could make a policy decision.
Yeah. So first let's qualify this, because what you're describing sounds like not that they took control, but rather they did a screen share,
Yes,
which does that's not you haven't taken control of the screen or the meeting, but screen shares do allow you to share your screen without necessarily needing the previous sharer to unshare. If
right.
for all of us kind of know the Skype days, that typically was how it was kind of back in the day, right? The first person would graciously stop sharing so that another person could share. In a Teams world, somebody shares, they do bump out the other one, which usually I see that working well in that it keeps the two people from having to have this little coordination, right? In this case, though, it sounds like that wasn't appreciated in that particular sense. But that is working by design, and so the ability to share with, or basically to keep someone from being able to share over top of another share. I don't know if there's a setting for that. There's certainly the ability to decide who can share, but among those people who can share, I think they can all bump each other out. So yeah, the first qualification there, that's a share thing as opposed to a take control, which means I'm actually, if it's slides, I'm actually moving the slides as opposed to someone else. And that is the policy I was talking about previously. So
Well, one thing that we came up with, which is not technical, it's social, is that the organizer will be a narrator, or the organizer will appoint a narrator and make introductions and say, now so and so will present their PowerPoint or their issue, and to tell the presenters, do not take control of the screen share until the narrator introduces you.
yeah. Yeah, and so that's a good one, basically setting up some rules about the etiquette for the meeting. The other one that's a little more enforced but involves some work for the organizer would be to just set presenters on the fly when you're ready for them to actually share. So everyone's an attendee except the person who is allowed to share. Once they're done, now you've got to click names to say, okay, make this person a presenter, make the other person an attendee. That would enforce it per se, but that's a lot of clicks on the fly for the organizer. I could still see that being useful though if the flow of the meeting was important enough, and you were concerned that people are out there kind of willy-nilly sharing. So that'd be another approach. But I certainly like the approach of just an agreed upon etiquette for the meeting. That makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, so let's talk real quick about the accessibility features here. I'm really interested in hearing you guys' thoughts here, and I'm really just using this particular relatively newer support article as a way to kind of talk through a few things. So as we see here, they break it down to 4 different areas. There's certainly more, can certainly be more than these ways in terms of accessibility in a meeting, but these are interesting. So enabling live captions, right, to detect what's said in real time, and so we do. I probably should. Well, I could demo it if we need to, but more options. Turn on live captions. Um, the reason I thought this was interesting, one, obviously, if someone's having trouble hearing, this is going to be useful for, to be able to read what happens. If you try this out, you may notice, and you could even try it now in this meeting. Um, the accuracy, I think, is pretty good. I guess it's subjective. It's certainly not 100%. But I have been pleasantly surprised at some of many times at its ability to do this real time um, uh, uh, captions. The the great example I had once is one where it kind of realized that the person had paused versus uh, to the human ear, it would seem like the person had made a mistake. The captions, and I don't have any way to reproduce this for you, just have to believe me. But the captions, the real time captions had noticed it was a pause and actually put like a dash, the way you would really like write it up in an article or something like that. So I've seen some pretty good AI work coming out of that caption. So that's something to try out. The other thing I thought was important here, because a lot of accessibility features are, historically precursors to features that everyone ends up using. And I have certainly, I don't consider myself having a disability that requires live captions, but I have used it in meetings where I might be having trouble with a person's accent, or maybe their volume's just not high. Again, that AI is pretty good at picking up the language and picking up what they're saying, and so I've used that to complement what I actually can hear, but just want to get more clarity with the live caption. So that's something to keep in mind there. But again, live captions as an accessibility feature. Any thoughts there? Anybody's experience with captions, good or bad? I've certainly had people say that they didn't like the accuracy and so forth. But yeah, go ahead, Heather.
Hey, Ricardo. So I was just going to type this in the chat, but since you called for comments, I was at a Microsoft event, the Power Platform Conference, and Donna from Microsoft mentioned she's very big into accessibility, and she mentioned that the research shows that if the words are on the screen, that even people without hearing problems will retain information better because they're getting it from two different sources. And so she did her entire presentation there, and there was a couple little blips, like it didn't really know the word that she was trying to say, especially when you're using jargony words, but otherwise it was, I would say, 95% accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, there's a lot of acronyms in Microsoft, and so when we have meetings, I am often surprised when it does turn someone's use of an acronym into the acronym itself and doesn't try to like spell it out per se. So yeah, there's some intelligence in there for sure. Good stuff. But yeah, that's a good note about kind of our cognitive ability to kind of retain and that information by seeing the words. I have certainly the other approach to this whole live captions thing for your PowerPoint presentations. There's that same feature there. So even without Teams, right? Sharing a PowerPoint and in PowerPoint turning on, and I could probably show that, but turning on the caption feature will also, oops, now I'm doing too much here, will also do the same thing. And I've seen people be pleasantly surprised at that. And I think I might be able to show that really quickly here. I think it is, if anybody remembers where it is, you can shout it out. It's got, maybe it's slideshow. And I think it's, one of these guys, and deciding where in the, bottom, top, or whatever, where do you want the words to show? So this will do it too, even if it wasn't in Teams, or if you're, using some other platform, you could still get those subtitles with their PowerPoint presentations. So that's a cool one. Another one that I hadn't really thought about is clear backgrounds. And I think to me that makes sense if the person is a translator. But I think in general that, I'm going to put more thought into that. I mean, if someone does have a vision issue, I mean, I'd like them to see me in my best self. And so if that means a more clear background, maybe maybe a white background that helps with the contrast or something like that, I don't know. But that's a interesting concept as well. So if you are the main speaker, maybe in a meeting, as opposed to maybe just an attendee. Maybe consider your background in terms of giving the best view possible, and it, as well. The other thing this made me think about, again, not just folks who need sign language, but also if any folks who get more out of a speaker when they can see more body movement. It also makes me think about my viewing angle or my zoom in angle related to my video feed. Sometimes I will have a kind of a shoulder up profile only, like kind of from the neck up, but sort of like I'm doing today, and hopefully this comes through on the feed, but coming back a little more such that my hand movements are a little more visible might be useful to somebody who gets a little more out of, now I'm actually overdoing it, but gets a little more out of the body language of the speaker. So, that could be another thing to consider here in addition to the background. Anybody with a thought on that one? I do see in the comments about that cameo feature in PowerPoint for seeing the speaker and the slides at the same time. And in fact, that's another one that is PowerPoint has its ability as well as Teams with the, and I forget what we call it there. Anybody remember what we call it when your face is on top of the, I used to call it the weather person view, but I
think correspondent.
Is that what it's called? Okay.
I think.
Yeah. But certainly there's a feature to kind of overlay you on top of the PowerPoint. And again, someone could say it's just cool, but another could say it's useful to help people stay engaged with the presentation. So
I honestly think Cameo is a little bit better than the PowerPoint Live with the overlays, because then it hides the slide behind your shoulder, the view you're talking about. So with Cameo, you can change the size of the frame and you embed it directly into the presentation. So all of my webinars, when I start out, like on the welcome screen, welcome, this is Heather, and it's really big. And then on the housekeeping tips, I'm in a smaller circle on the side. And then in the next slide, I might be in a bigger triangle or a bigger square. So it moves around with you in the presentation and just follows you through, and it embeds it natively so that it switches up with the slide. So instead of having your face and the person trying to squint at the slide in the background, it's all one seamless interface. So I use that as my introductions to my webinars so that the students who've never met me in person can say, oh, this is who has been speaking at me.
Yeah. Yeah, PowerPoint is pretty cool, on its own. And you got my brain kind of bubbling about, even doing some PowerPoint demos, because there's a lot of cool features, even if Teams wasn't here or any video conferencing platform. PowerPoint's been around a while, and it's got some cool innovation in it. So it's good stuff. This next one here is about, best practices for participants. One being turning on the video. In this case, they're talking about turning it on to allow deaf participants to read your lips, which kind of then goes back to my other comment, pulling back to see body language, or should I be zooming in to make sure you can, see my lips? I don't know. Go back and forth on that. And then muting your audio when not speaking to avoid unnecessary background noise. Again, even outside of an accessibility feature, turning on video, I think it's just a useful idea there. It's a subtle thing, but we sometimes forget some of the things we get annoyed about with video conferencing often could be fixed with turning on the video. And I know we don't always feel camera ready, but things like, it does help to understand what someone's saying when you can see their face. And again, it's not just a I read lips thing. It's that it's almost like the text that helps with the audio. Seeing the face, helps me figure out what you're saying. Also, the small facial cues that we give to let someone know that we like to jump in on the conversation are missed if the camera's off. So, we kind of open our mouths a little to kind of, as we're about to, make a comment, we miss all that with the camera turned off. So again, certainly useful for those trying to read lips, but also turning on the camera is also just useful in general. This also talks about avoiding multiple people taking the floor at once, identifying yourself before commenting. Yeah, even to go so far, there's something I sometimes when I have a large or more formal presentation I'm giving, there is a technique of actually describing yourself on the screen. I'm a black male in a yellow shirt with a white background. I'm wearing glasses, and and so forth. Again, that's for someone that may not be able to actually see clearly, but now they can fully appreciate the person that they're looking at or listening to. Any comments on that? Turning on video and best practices. The last one here, recording and sharing the meeting, I thought was also interesting. Again, not just from an accessibility feature, but well, let me start with from accessibility feature. For those that might, have say cognitive issues or troubles maybe digesting the meeting in real time, a recording could go a long way to allowing someone to more comfortably rewatch, maybe reabsorb what happened in maybe a less in a more comfortable pace. So that's something I didn't often think about, and could be a good motivation for like just an auto recording of meetings in general. You may think I have no interest in watching this again, but someone else might love to watch it at a smaller pace. Maybe their ability to take notes, being able to pause, take the note, and then continue, things of that nature. So it's more than just a feature for those of us that are usually triple booked at any given time of the day. So we depend on those recordings for that. But it could have some other benefits as well. Any thoughts on recording of meetings? I know some folks that passionately hate meeting recordings, and I don't know why. I don't know if there's anybody like on the line here for that, but others appreciate it for the ability to kind of go back, especially to see meetings that they missed because of another meeting. So, any thoughts on meeting recordings?
Actually, I've had people ask why the meeting chat isn't part of the recording. And I know where you can get the meeting chat. I just don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to. I know transcription. Yeah. I thought I was
like
trying to think about.
Whiteboard's not recorded, and then the meeting chat, which you can
Right.
find, in Teams. It just we've had a couple people request that.
Yeah.
From an accessibility standpoint.
I was in my mind, I was thinking I had maybe seen that feature being prototyped somewhere, but I'm not gonna. That may be me misremembering, but I know that I'm seeing more innovation on the recording side in terms of whether it be things like the transcription on the side, like what do you call those chapters in the meeting based on the slide that the person has shared, basically auto chapters is probably how you would describe that. So all that being said, if full chat integration isn't there, it might be something coming, because I do see more and more things added to that recording experience over time. But yeah, that would be good. I do often depend on a meeting that I missed, but there's a recording, but also being able to scroll back to the chat. Again, it's not part of the recording, to your point, but being able to scroll back to the chat and kind of see what people said helps me know where in the recording I need to go based on the chat that I see and where the chat seems to get interesting. And I'll look at the time stamp, try to go back to the recording to get to that point. That's cumbersome. So you're right, having a tight integration of the chat with the recording would be great. I see a hand up. Who's that? Oh yeah, Tim.
Yeah, some of that stuff might be, part of the new, what do you call it, Teams Premium. Isn't there AI involved in Teams Premium that if your name is mentioned during the recording, you can go back into it and it'll take you to it? So that may be where some of the things are coming from. We were offered a briefing on Teams Premium. We haven't seen the whole thing yet.
Yeah.
Obviously, it'd be a premium license, but one of the questions we had referenced that was, well, what if we do have some people? It might help again from some accessibility standpoint. So what we don't know is if we get some premium Teams licenses, for certain people who might benefit much more. So anyway, just a thought.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I'm still trying to get up to speed on all the things related to Teams Premium. So you're right. There may be something specific in there. I have seen that. I have seen recordings that have pinpointed an app mention of me in the meeting. I've seen that before. So good stuff. Any other thoughts related to accessibility or anything we talked about in general? Again, this link is in the chat. And of course, if you want even more, there just real quickly, the Office accessibility landing page in general has tons of information about accessibility features, not just for Teams, but across the whole suite. So just saying that. Who's that?
Sorry, it's Tim again, Ricardo. Just one quick question. We're not seeing the sign language yet. Is it completely rolled out? According to the Message Center, it is, but we're not seeing it in the settings where it says settings privacy.
Yeah.
I just want to know if you had any insights. Maybe it'll just come later.
Yeah, I think, does the roadmap say it's done, supposed to be done?
I think so. I think it was end of December.
Okay.
Yeah. Ironically, I'm seeing it in this meeting today.
Mm-hmm.
So GCC in the meeting settings, but I'm not seeing it in my overall settings as described in the documentation.
Right. Yeah, I think what I'd have to look at is if there is an admin setting, if it's disabled by default. Yeah.
Okay, we're having somebody check into it too, so no big deal.
Okay.
It's not the language interpretation, it's the sign language. So that there's two different things.
Gotcha.
We actually have a problem with the language interpretation too, just so people know. You can designate interpreters, and according to the documentation, you should be able to, once the meeting starts, designate somebody from outside of the organization, which would kind of make sense, and we can't do that. So we can only designate our interpreters from inside the organization. They have to have an account.
Gotcha. Okay. I'll have to check on that. All right. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Good discussion. Yeah, if you are new today, welcome. Hopefully we see you that we're here every Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Other than that, we got about a minute. If anybody's got any other burning questions or comments, I don't think I missed anything from chat. Okay. Awesome. Well, we'll certainly hope to see Stacy back next week. And checking the chat there. Okay. Yep. Cool. Again, it's accessibility roadmap homepage if you really like this topic and want to dive into it more. I think I just lost it. There we go. Where is that? Yeah, Office accessibility. So yeah, definitely take a look into that. But good stuff. All right. Well, glad to see you all again and have a great weekend, and we will hit it again next week.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and check out the blog for more content.